God didn't give us this thing. So if God didn't give us fear, that means God is not going to bring COVID on his people. I don't see how that's going to work. Because COVID is a design of the roaring lion that don't have teeth and the liar that wants to try to perpetuate a fraud. So they can reduce you to a babbling idiot that don't. Where's your God is what they want to ask you. Where's your God? Some people's God's name is J.D., Jack Daniels. Some people's God is named one of them electric pipe things they smoking nowadays, vaping. Some people's God is whatever the governor say. Governor Abbott ain't my God. Nuremberg, whatever his name is, he's not my God. I understand the Constitution of the United States to tell me that they cannot infringe upon my liberty to worship when, where, and how I want to. They cannot determine that for me. Now, if they want to bring a police officer, I've had the cops called on me before because I was having church. Years ago, am I right? You were there. I was having church in my own place of business. And somebody called the police on me. The policeman said, "You own this store?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Are you at capacity?" I said, "Not yet." He said, "Why did they call me?" Because they were fearful. And they were angry because God had covered me. And you know what? I believe he hasn't stopped. I believe the Lord is still my shepherd. I shall not want. I'm not worried about what the world tells me I'm supposed to be afraid of. I'm not afraid of it. I'm just not. Because I already got an ailment. I don't need the disease of fear. Somebody told me that Peter was looking out on the water and saw a figure he thought was a spirit. He wasn't quite sure what to think of it until he recognized that it was the Lord. And there was a storm raging. It's something about Jesus' presence and storms. Ain't that something? He's like the storm. He's like a trailer home of holiness. He can draw a tornado to him, man. You know, if you get Jesus in your heart, you know you're setting yourself up for a storm. The storm might be something on one end, and just when you look on the other side, there's another one. You got a hurricane coming up your back, and you got a tornado coming up front. And guess what, if Jesus is in you, he ain't going to. Why do y'all saying, "I shall not be moved," if fear moves you away from Christ? I shall not be moved. Nothing shall separate me from the love of God. And then you say, what shall separate COVID? Some lying politician telling you, and then they want to try to take all the power of your freedom. When Paul told us to stand fast. Fear is a disease that will cause you sleepless nights. Fear is a disease that will cost you your treasure. You'll be afraid you don't have enough barn. And you'll build one that you're going to die not seeing the results of it anyway. What is it? Word about the wrong thing? Ain't that what folks say? Y'all mark that right there and go with me to Hebrews. There's one thing we should fear. See, now I talked to you a little bit about the disease. Now I'm going to talk to you about the catapult of fear. I'm going to talk to you about the strengthening of a certain fear. But this kind of fear is not a slavish fear. Paul was talking about the spirit of fear that rejects the power of God. Paul was talking about the spirit of fear that supplants your faith. That's what he was talking about when he was talking to Timothy. But the writer of Hebrews in the 4th chapter, he tells us if we're going to fear something, let it be a fear of reverence. Let it be one that causes you to pause and say, I'm not displeasing to you, God, am I? I don't want to mess up with God. Let it be that kind of fear. I don't want, Lord, you told me not to forsake the assembling of myself, but the world is telling you to forget the assembling of yourselves. Huh? For what? If I die, then I die. That's just me getting on the train to glory, and my ticket's been punched. It's acceptable of the Most High God. So when I look at this thing, and make sure this mic is on. When I look at these things and I witness how people that don't know my God and don't serve him in spirit and in truth, they capitulate. And here's the problem, the thing they should be afraid of. Read verse 1, chapter 4.
Let us therefore fear.
Let us therefore, what?
Fear.
Wait a minute. Didn't you just tell us we're not supposed to have fear? But this is a reverential fear, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
It's like the child daddy said, I'm be at home at 5. That room better be clean. And that child got caught up in watching Rocky 2. And they didn't realize it was 5 o'clock and daddy at 5:15 and daddy been standing behind them for 15 minutes. Watching them go through the motions. You know how you fight with the boxer? You ever, in them cowboy movies when they're shooting and you ducking with them?
Yeah.
Daddy's standing back there, he already checked out the room. And then all of a sudden you feel that tap on your shoulder. Oh, Daddy, it's 5:15. I told you I was going to be at home at 5 and that room better be cleaned up. Then you hear the zing of his belt leaving. Zing! Didn't I tell you? See, you got to be that kind of fearful because that's when your mouth get dry, your throat get tight, your feet sweat, your ears start wiggling because you know that you didn't meet the criteria. Look at what he said. Let us therefore fear lest what?
A promise being left us of entering into his rest.
You ain't going to get no rest with leather hitting you. You won't do that. See, God says, look, obey me in spite of the situation that surrounds you. Obey me instead of your current state of being. Obey me, trust me, have faith in me. You ought to be afraid that I'm not pleased with you.
Oh, man.
That's what you ought to be afraid of. Huh? You go over here want to try to quench your thirst with Coca-Cola when I'm trying to give you the water of life.
Yes.
Huh? It may be wet and cold, but it's not going to be good for what ails you.
Oh, man.
Huh? And that's what people do with this ungodly spirit of fear as opposed to the reverential fear of trusting in God. He said you might come short of it because you didn't have enough respect of what my word has said, of what I've done in your life, and what I'm doing in your life. You worried about a storm that you don't even control.
Wow.
Why? What did Stevie say? You know, Brother Stevie. He said, don't you worry about a thing. Ain't that what he said? And then here we are, Christians. We all got gloves on, look like morons going to get some apples. Can't even go get a taco without a face mask, gloves on, a bottle of Purell, a can of Lysol. You look like you going to combat about. You can't even see where your enemy is.
Oh, man.
Your enemy ain't in the air. Your enemy is in office in Austin and in Washington, D.C. and in the mayor's office. That's where your enemy is outside the door going to and fro. Seeking whom he may devour. He's trying to eat up your faith. He's trying to nibble on your faith. That's exactly what the enemy's trying to do. And I know I sort of frustrate my wife because I'm just not a fearful person. I respect my wife. And I give heed to her advice because she's pretty smart. My wife's pretty smart. Don't make no mistake. I don't know everything, but she reminds me of it sometimes. And the Lord let me know, say, see there? She don't know it, but he'll get me like that sometimes. I'll go in another room after we done had something. I'm like, yeah, like she knows she's right. You know she's right. See that? He does that more. I hope she don't think this is. I'm trying not to give her a big head. But God loves my wife. He really does. And he gets on me about her sometimes. He'll get on. Does he ever get on y'all about each other?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know you ain't talking to your husband, right? You ought to fear being left behind.
Wow.
You know you ain't treating your wife right. You ought to fear being left behind.
Wow.
Aren't you not afraid that that's my child you treating like that? Aren't you not afraid that that's my son you treat like that? My daughter you treat like that? You need to get your act together. What did the writer of Hebrews say in chapter 2, verse 1? What did he tell us? He said, therefore, we ought to give the most earnest heed to the things. Earnest heed to the things which we have heard, lest at any time we should let them slip. Quit forgetting and sliding into fear. The wrong type of fear. He said, for unto us was the gospel preached. Read. As well as unto them. Verse 4, chapter 4, verse 2.
All right. As well as unto them.
But the word.
But the word preached did not profit them. Not
Stop.
be.
See, all these other folks weren't around here talking about buying spring water, holy water. If the Pope is your mediator, why you ain't going to church?
Oh, yeah.
Hello? If you got Christ in your heart, why are you afraid to shake somebody's hand? Because I know where my life is. He's already shown me where my life is. My life is found in him. My hope is in him. My hope is in the rest. I'm not worried about the storm. I know who owns it. I know who cranked it up. I know who can calm the seas. And that's why I put my hand in the hand of the man from Galilee. See, because he'll make me take a look at myself. Right? See, look at yourself, how you just got through trying to blow your wife off. You know she's right. Okay, Lord, okay, I'll capitulate. Good. Because you don't want me upset with you about my daughter. No, Lord, I don't. Because he will get me. He will. And because he loved her like he loved me. And you need to be remembering how you treat God's children. Hello? Quit thinking that you got carte blanche. You know, you all that in a bag of chips with a side of tuna salad. He said, but look at this. He said, it didn't profit them not being mixed with what?
Faith in them that heard it.
It has to be mixed with faith. When you hear the gospel, you got to mix it with faith.
Amen.
You know why? Because when you mix it up, you become an apothecary of hope. You begin to mix up that word with that faith. And when you take it, it heals you from fear. It heals you from an unhealthy slavishness towards things that you know God has gotten your back on. Lord tell you to go down a dark alley, you want to shake and question and do a 10-point questionnaire. 10-point questionnaire. You want to lay a fleece out. You don't even know where a fleece come from. And you want to lay a fleece out. And then you want to ask him, well, Lord, why me and why not somebody else? Go through all these questions when God just say, do what I told you. Don't you worry about the other stuff. If you're going to bake the cake, why are you running down the street while you put the cake in the oven? And you know you left your key and locked the door. You should have stayed at home and waited for the cake to come out. Then you know it's going to be right. Well, I had to go down the street because I saw a fire at this house. You're a fireman now. What, you took some water? What you going to do? Just view? People looking at the wrong thing, brother. See, what Peter looked at, if I remember right, he was doing okay as long as he kept his eyes stayed on him. Because when his eyes were on him, he narrowed his focus. So we already knew there was a storm, but the winds picked up. It's okay if it's a little breeze. But don't let the chimes get too loud on the front porch. Or don't let the tree bend too much now. We get to wonder, wait a minute, God, you do know I'm here, right? Yeah, you do know I'm here, still on 123 Goliad, Lord. Huh? Well, wait a minute. What's going on here? He said, well, you have little faith. Because what you do is, the more fear you put in the glass of faith, the more faith falls out the glass. And it's no longer good faith.
Wow.
So you need to keep fear out your glass.
Thank you, Lord.
And just let him fill your cup to overflowing. Because he'll fill your cup to overflowing and the table won't get wet. He'll do that. You know that. You know he'll do that. You can eat of this word 24/7 and never get full. Because that's who we serve. So as we continue to move forward in Christ and trust the preached word and take heed of the warnings, then we'll begin to realize God's got our best interest in hand. It ain't always about what you want or what you think. It's what God says. And that's always what God says. Because once you start trying to manipulate and play trickerations with God, you find yourself in a messed up situation. You know, James reminds us, and I'm reminded when I look around how many church folk love the fact that they get to watch church on the internet. They much rather be at home because they could do it in their PJs. For real. They don't have to be there. They can fake it. They can't squirm and everybody see them when the word hit them. You know how that word will get you? That word will find you. Be sure your sins will find you out. You think you have made a bargain with God in your sin. Well, Lord, I know you're going to make an exception for me. Because I'm going to point out that what you did, you made an exception for so-and-so, and you made an exception for so-and-so, and you made an exception for so-and-so. So can I get a... No. It wasn't Peter and the pips on the water. It wasn't Peter, John, and Mark walking towards Jesus. It was just Peter. He didn't say, how come those guys on the boat don't have any kind of faith? He didn't address the reason why they didn't come. He said, you of little faith. He's going to talk to you. And he's going to remind you, said that I was your Lord. Then why are you trusting in a little bitty thing that my father sent to kill you? Why are you worried about that? Why are you concerned about it? I've given you a land of liberty. But see, the nation of the United States turned its back on God. We started worshiping Mammon. We started worshiping the wrong kind of star. We put Jesus Christ in the category of only if you think so. He's Lord only if you think so. You know, I don't think my child ought to be made to go to church. But what you didn't know is you're going against God when you take that attitude. You're afraid you're going to be different. You're afraid that you're going to have to humble yourself to somebody greater than you. And now you are stuck with this ailment called perpetual fear. Go with me to James. I'm trying to get these scriptures to you so you can follow along with my mindset, what God has given me. Y'all in James chapter 2. All right. Look with me at verse 18. Read.
Yea, a man may say, thou hast faith, and I have works. Show me thy faith without thy works, and I will show thee my faith by my works.
It took some work to get to church.
Yes, sir.
Now, all these people that got faith and stayed at home. Now, I'm not trying to knock you because I know you got to grow up. I know you got to grow up to understand this kind of faith and the expectation God has of his people. He expects us to be warriors. You have been taught that here. You have been told that you are members of a royal priesthood. You have been told to put on the whole armor of God. Yet when the devil throws a little dart all the way from China, all of a sudden your armor becomes rice paper. All of a sudden, you don't have, your faith dwindles. You just say, well, I know God will watch me, but I don't want to tempt him. You hypocrite. What do you mean? That's not tempting him is going and you hugging up on somebody you know got COVID. I'm going to show you how God ain't going to let it get me. What's wrong with you? Don't tempt God like that. That's not what I'm talking about. But why would you walk around in fear? If I want to go in Home Depot without a mask on, I'm going to go in Home Depot because I need to breathe. It gets hot in there. Huh? And I don't like the comfort. It's not comfortable to me having that thing on my face. I didn't like doing the gas mask in the military. And they had gas in the chamber that made me choke and gag. But here is the thing. If you're going to have faith in God, then you need to start understanding what the enemy's doing. He's trying to take your faith away. He's trying to get you to stop using your faith. Because faith is nothing if you're not going to exercise it. Faith, what is that? All this, people are fearfully buying stuff they don't need. The government sent the nation into bankruptcy because it was fearful. See what fear did? No faith. All Trump had to do was sit back and say, well, let's wait a couple of months. And we're going to see how this thing turn out. Because surely the mayors and people got good sense. You don't have to, we're not going to give any mandates. We're just going to do them like we do them with the flu. They act like COVID went around with some AK-47s and some 60-clip bananas, some 60-round banana clips, just shooting folk up. Like COVID was a Tommy gun of Satan. Like it just don't breathe, don't touch, don't go to the stakeout, don't go to the Whataburger, don't shake his hand even though you know ain't nothing wrong with him. Close the school. Well, I mean, the schools were closed anyway because they wasn't teaching the kids nothing right. They wondered about money. Quit buying all these thuggish drive-by shooting, coke smoking, crack taking, cigar smoking.